Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Palestinian terrorists killing an American in another deadly attack. The terrorists shooting and killing the American citizen near the Palestinian Arab town of Jericho. We'll bring you the story from Jerusalem. Revival services spreading from Asbury University to other locations with baptisms and healings. Heart disease is the #1 killer of Americans. We'll tell you what you need to know to keep your heart healthy. The tragedy and legacy of Emmett Till, how the lynching of this black teenager in 1955 helped to launch the civil rights movement, and the town where it happened is coming to grips with its past. And Dr. Alveda King talks to CBN News about the future of the pro-life movement and the power of forgiveness. Those stories and more today on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour in the Middle East with another deadly attack. This time, Palestinian terrorists killed an American citizen, and there's talk of a prolonged period of violence known as intifada that it could be coming. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl brings us the story from Jerusalem.
Palestinian terrorists shot and killed American citizen Ilan Ganeles on a main Israeli highway near the Palestinian Arab town of Jericho. The terrorists then shot at another car, set theirs on fire, and fled in another vehicle. After Monday's murders of 2 Israeli brothers, there's talk this recent violence could lead to a third intifada or uprising.
The general big picture is one of, I'd say, at least 3 months of continuous terror attacks by different Palestinian organizations and responses and countermeasures by Israeli security forces.
Former IDF spokesman Jonathan Conricus says this could lead to what he called a rolling escalation.
We're coming into the month of Ramadan, which historically speaking, even though it's a holy month for Muslims, historically speaking, it's a month of terror for Israelis.
Monday's attack sparked unprecedented Israeli retaliation that resulted in widespread condemnation.
I understand the hard feelings, but this isn't the way. We can't take the law into our own hands. Israel's government, the State of Israel, IDF, the security forces, they're the ones who need to crush our enemies.
U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price expressed U.S. concern about the weekend violence and Israeli rioting.
It is imperative that Israel and the Palestinians work together to de-escalate tensions and to restore calm.
Shai Golan, who heads a settlement council in biblical Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, condemned the rioting and said it's not the way of settlement leaders.
To take the law into one's hands and burn things, this is not the way of Judaism, not the way of the Jews. There is a state, and only the state will manage these events.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Back here at home, we turn now to the revival that began at Asbury University. It is spreading across America. Christian evangelist Nick Hall provided a space at the Rupp Arena in downtown Lexington. It happened over the weekend for the revival to continue. And Michael Fellhauer, the lead pastor of New Life Church in Corpus Christi, Texas, posted videos showing baptisms being performed in a public fountain at Texas A&M Galveston. Worship, repentance, and prayers are also being reported, as are healings. As a student at Texas A&M in College Station said, an A&M student who couldn't previously walk by himself was able to walk 20 steps after students prayed for him. And there have been reports of revival at other schools, including Louisiana State University and Baton Rouge and Baylor University in Waco, Texas. You can keep up with the ongoing stories of the revival at cbnnews.com. Washington is stepping up its crackdown on China, this time with a directive from the White House banning the app TikTok on all federal government phones. As CBN's Capitol Hill correspondent Mount Galka shows us, this could just be the opening salvo against the Chinese-owned app.
Federal agencies have 30 days to get TikTok off their government devices. Concerns the app could be used to collect data and potentially spy on Americans have been driving the calls for the government ban. The Office of Management and Budget said the government ban was a, quote, critical step forward in addressing the risks presented by the app to sensitive government data. White House officials had previously said the app wasn't allowed on White House phones.
We are focused on the challenges of certain countries, including China, seeking to leverage digital technologies and Americans' data in ways that present unacceptable national security risk.
The move comes as Canada also issued a federal TikTok ban starting today.
We're making the decision that for government employees, for government equipment, it is better to not have them access TikTok because of the concerns that people have in terms of safety. This may be a first step. It may be the only step we need to take.
Multiple bills have been filed in Congress looking to ban TikTok nationwide in America. The Republican chair and Democratic ranking member of the new House Select Committee on China appeared together on CBS this past weekend to talk about what Congress can do to take on the Asian superpower.
TikTok is owned by ByteDance, a Chinese company that's required to provide its user data, including on the 140 million Americans, as well as control of algorithms to the Chinese Communist Party upon request. All we're saying is if TikTok is going to operate here, don't have that user data and algorithms controlled by an adversarial regime.
And that new House Select Committee on China holds its first hearing tonight in prime time. The focus, the Chinese Communist Party threat to America. Matt Gelka, CBN News.
Coming up, heart disease, the #1 cause of death in the United States. We're going to bring you a look at what you need to know to keep your heart healthy when we come back. Stay with us. February is dubbed Heart Month, a time to set aside for people to focus on their health. Heart disease is America's #1 killer. In fact, the CDC reports someone dies from cardiovascular disease every 34 seconds. As Lori Johnson shows us, new research shows many Americans lack important information about heart health.
Whether it's a heart attack, stroke, or plaque buildup, doctors say poor lifestyle choices largely contribute to heart disease. And adopting healthier habits can turn things around. But do Americans know how to do that? Although heart disease remains America's leading cause of death, the good news is the number of people dying from it has been steadily decreasing over the last 40 years. But that downward trend stopped about 5 years ago and has remained the same ever since. A Cleveland Clinic survey finds Americans harbor a number of misconceptions when it comes to heart health. For example, 10% believe a fast food diet is the most heart healthy, while 72% incorrectly think low-fat or low-carb diets are best, while only 15% know the healthiest is actually the Mediterranean diet.
It has the best data for actually reducing strokes and heart attacks. And there's large randomized clinical trials that show this.
Many don't know the Mediterranean diet consists mostly of fruits and vegetables, aka good carbs.
So if you think about your plate as a pie chart, 60 to 70% of that should be fruits and vegetables.
The Mediterranean diet also includes healthy fats like olive oil.
Extra virgin olive oil has an anti-inflammatory component called oleic acid. And we know that some cardiovascular risk is driven by overall or systemic inflammation within the body, so that can be helpful.
Beans, poultry, and fish are on the health menu, but not shellfish, red meat, pork, or processed foods.
Chips, crackers, pastries, lunch meats, those are the killers.
Losing excess weight can be good for the heart, although a whopping 71% of us don't know the best way to do that.
The majority of Americans thought that exercise was the biggest thing that we could do to lose weight, where we know that really isn't true. Now, exercise is important for overall cardiovascular health, but if you really want to get your weight down and become a healthy weight, the biggest thing that people need to do is modify their diet.
Too many Americans don't realize the importance of keeping their blood pressure and cholesterol in check.
Most people should be seeing their primary care doctor, and they should be checking that.
And more people need to know there are other heart attack symptoms beyond chest pain and pressure.
For women, I typically say also that nausea or any type of gastrointestinal symptoms that just are lingering and not going away, you should at least think about, maybe it's my heart.
So while there's a lot we can do to lower our risk of heart disease, the first step is getting the right information. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
For more lessons on your heart health, be sure to check out Healthy Living on the CBN News Channel tonight at 8:30 Eastern. You can find it on the CBN News app as well, and you can watch it on YouTube. Still ahead, the murder of a boy and the miscarriage of justice, the lynching of Emmett Till. See how the town where it all went down is coming to grips with its ugly past and showing us a way forward. We're going to bring you that story right after this. Stay with us. Mississippi leaders have erected a statue in Mississippi that marks one of the most tragic and shameful events in our history. It honors the legacy of Emmett Till, a black teenager murdered back in 1955. The outpouring of anger and grief that followed his lynching helped to launch the civil rights movement. CBN's Brody Carter brings us the story from the Mississippi Delta.
Racism is still alive in Mississippi.
Standing just feet away from where Emmett Till was lynched, the mayor of Glendora, Mississippi, talks about the young man's final moments.
The very first beating that he received was just right there on that pile of rocks, and the blood was washed out of the truck here on these grounds. His clothes burned on these grounds, and came here to dispose of the body.
For many who live here, the Mississippi Delta is grief. Its history steeped in racism and generational poverty, where sharecroppers worked the land, making wealth for plantation owners. And even after all this time, Emmett Till's story still haunts the Delta. Glendora's mayor hopes the statue will keep his legacy alive.
By making sure that our young folks never forget the heinous act that took place, and to remember not to be afraid to stand up.
After being beaten, shot in the head, and tied to a cotton gin fan with barbed wire, 14-year-old Emmett Till's body was discarded here in the Tallahatchie River.
Mayor Thomas must wrestle with his family's legacy here, including this, how his father helped tie Till to the cotton gin fan. It's where a local museum commemorating Till stands today.
Cotton was king for Mississippi. This Delta we had billboards saying, kept the cotton king of the world.
State Senator David Lee Jordan has memories as well, sitting in the Sumner County Courthouse watching the two men charged with Till's murder get acquitted.
On the stand, they had the mortician from Greenwood, Mississippi, a friend that knew us. So he said there was a ring. He found a ring on his finger, and it had his father's initial in it. And that's why he was able to identify the body.
Jordan says his purpose is to make life better for the people in the Delta. He recently led an effort to install a 9-foot, $150,000 bronze statue of Emmett Till.
This larger-than-life statue of Emmett Till, dedicated last year, stands boldly over the city of Greenwood, Mississippi, not far from where Till was kidnapped. It also reads that Till's sacrifice in 1955 is what inspired the civil rights movement.
A new movie on Till is also helping honor his legacy and keep it alive.
The lynching of my son has shown me that what happens to any of us, anywhere in the world, had better be the business of us all.
However, some believe the memorialization of Till via movies and statues have ripped off the Band-Aid of wounds that never healed.
The danger is that some people would look at the monument going up and say, we did it. We're done. We've addressed this issue. Let's move on.
That's part of the work, but it's a deeper work that have to go on in our hearts. And the church have to be a part of that. And I think we should.
In the same courthouse where an all-white jury acquitted the two men, Reverend Willie Williams preserves Till's memory and says people here are still dealing with his death.
We talk a lot about reconciliation, and to me, it's it's a twofold as relate to biblical reconciliation.
Williams and his team at the Emmett Till Interpretive Center across from the courthouse say today's national conversation on racism needs to include healing and reconciliation.
The church is made of people, and that it's up to people to choose, to bring light to some of the situations that I think sometimes we often try to divorce ourselves from.
The solution is to try to uplift humanity and do our part, and not, allow hate and unforgiveness and destroy us from the inside out.
Till's lynching is one of more than 4,000 that took place during the Jim Crow era, following the Civil War and into the 20th century. Little is known today about those horrendous crimes. Leaders in the Delta say it's up to the next generation to rise, tackle race relations head on, and pave a new path forward.
That's why I say people are more alike than they are different. And now we're at the largest picture of Emmett Till anywhere in the country, in Greenwood, Mississippi. I think we're going to eventually get there, but it's going to be too late for a lot of people.
Reporting in the Mississippi Delta, Brody Carter, CBN News.
Coming up, the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Alveda King, talks about the power of forgiveness, where she sees the abortion issue going now that Roe versus Wade has been overturned. We're going to hear from her when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Dr. Alveda King is founder and president of Speak for Life. It's an organization that pushes pro-life advocates to boldly speak against abortions. She's also the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and an acclaimed author, along with many other accolades. She joined this week's The Prayer Link program on the CBN News Channel to talk about the power of forgiveness and her thoughts on the overturning of Roe versus Wade.
You were a teenager when your uncle was murdered.
I was.
How did that affect you? Did you have to overcome, was there hate there for a while? And how did you forgive?
My uncle was killed, of course, and then in '68, my dad was killed in '69, Reverend A.D. King, and you can find that out. And then my grandmother was shot by a black man. So, we argue, oh, let's hate white people. They have enslaved us. Well, then we found out later, of course, throughout my journey, that it was the Africans who sold their African neighbors to the Caucasians.
That has really just come out more.
It's more now. So what it tells us is we're one blood and one race, 23andMe, and we begin to find out more and more people are more ethnically blended than we knew.
Yeah.
So there's one blood, one human race. And the repenting from that slavery time is for both of us to go back to the cross together. Father, forgive us. But nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to blame somebody else. And it has come out more and more. People are understanding that, and that we really are one blood and one race.
Yeah.
So we have to pray. George Wallace, for a long time, the racist, segregationist governor.
Right.
And he was shot, and he repented on the bed of affliction, and he actually repented. So it's always going to be repentance, forgiveness, human kindness, the love of God. And John 3:16 for everybody.
Yeah, in every generation.
Every generation.
Well, in addition to carrying on your uncle's dream, you are a big pro-life activist. And let me get your reaction, to Roe v. Wade being overturned last year. And what do we still have to accomplish, Alveda?
Well, I always believe that God is merciful, and that I never thought that I won't see Roe v. Wade overturned in my lifetime. I always expected God to move. I was praying. I believed he would do it. And so I knew that when that law by the Supreme Court was overturned, it simply was bringing the question of the sanctity of life from womb to the tomb and beyond back to the states.
Yeah.
So that has happened. Abortion is still legal in America. But abortion actually needs to be unthinkable. If the hearts of the people change, then the laws will definitely follow. And so we've got to begin to see each other as brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And the more we do that, the more humane we become again.
And I was reading about your testimony, and just as a young lady, you had a forced abortion by a doctor.
Doctor didn't even understand.
Didn't even know what was going on. And then you made a decision
to abort a child. And I had a miscarriage because my body was damaged from the abortion.
And you said it made you ill. It affected every aspect
my
of your
spirit,
life.
soul, and body for years and years, until I repented in the early 80s. And I asked God to forgive me of all my sins, including the abortions. He did.
And he did.
And then he allowed me to become a voice for the sanctity of life from the womb to the tomb and beyond. And I'm still that today, along with many, many other things. I re-recorded Impossible Dream, and at the end it says, with God, all things are possible.
Yeah.
And we redid We Shall Overcome. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome one day. But then we have overcome.
Yeah.
I no longer am a slave. Christ is risen from the grave. Christ is Lord, I'm saved, and I'm free. So in my music, my films, my speeches, my books.
You have a new book, right?
I do have a new book, and I'm working on even a newer book with Father Frank Pavone. He called me the other day, National Director of Priests for Life, and he says, are we going to ever do our book, Abortion in Black and White? I said, yeah, now. Let's just do it now.
I love it. He's a great guy. Yeah. But I love what you were saying, about how you took your pain from that abortion. God doesn't waste our pain, does he?
No, he uses it as a testimony.
And when you give it to him, he can bless others.
That entire interview is available on the prayer link, and you can see it on the CBN News Channel at 6:30 Eastern. You can also see it on the CBN News app or watch it on YouTube. Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable, and today I share this thought in hopes that you will post, tag, tweet, and share it with those in your circles of influence. God is calling on believers to advance his kingdom here on earth. We hear it and say it in the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. This is the season to see the kingdom, seek the kingdom, and share the kingdom so the will of God can be done on earth as it is in heaven. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you that you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. We would love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us again right back here next time. I encourage you to make this a terrific Tuesday and join us right back here, same time tomorrow. We so look forward to seeing you. Goodbye. God bless. We'll see you then.